right, the time is 4 o'clock. I will call the Plan Commission meeting to order, Tuesday, September 12th, 4 p.m. City Hall, second floor. Let's see, roll call, please.
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Kesnick,
Here.
Commissioner Schultz,
Here.
Councilperson Schultz.
Here.
Engineer Selly.
Here.
Manager Houseman.
Here. All right, next on the agenda is review and possible action relating to the minutes of the August 22nd, 2023 regular Plan Commission meeting.
I move approval of the minutes.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns about the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next on the agenda is review and possible action relating to the conditional use permit for group development relating to signage for Ford Healthcare at 611 Sherman Avenue East. This is CUP 2023-01. Mr. Drager, please.
Yes, good afternoon. This is a review on the the group development signs for the Ford Healthcare. If we remember, we touched on this a couple times now. We decided to go with the group development because of the allowable increase in the size of monument signs, which we felt was appropriate for this site due to the number of facilities they have there and descriptions that they need to display on there. And it closely resembles a site that would have many different businesses on it, which allows them to increase their monument height by 8 feet. You can see on the map there that there are several locations on here. Overall, they're meeting the requirements of a group development sign. Those there are what's existing at the moment. Those will be all replaced with the newer signage. You also see on the itemized list of the requirements there that it shows that the dimensions from the street curb are unknown. Those are actually known. They show on the more current map that they are at that 15-foot mark or greater and are outside of the vision triangle as well. Other than that, they are meeting the rest of the requirements as far as group development, and the staff recommends approval of the group development signs, plus the conditions that are associated with it. Welcome any questions.
I have a question.
That's fine.
Again, this is really more wayfinding than signage, but I think it relates. And I don't know if there's a rep from Ford Healthcare on Zoom, but how does a pedestrian access the entrances from the northeast or the southeast? There are, hundreds of people within walking distance of the Ford Healthcare main campus.
Correct.
And you would think they would want to encourage walking to lessen the need for more parking. Again, it looks like the southeast lot, they sort of started to make accommodations for that. They've got some striped pavement and some sidewalk, but it doesn't continue out to the outer sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there is any. I don't know how to push buttons. I don't think there is any sidewalk actually along that section of McMillan, which always did kind of puzzle me a bit.
Well, yeah,
on either
that's a good
side.
point.
There is sidewalk along Sherman Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
However, with the wall that they've put in there, I don't know if there's any access from that sidewalk
Right.
into the parking lot.
Exactly. That's true as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, my question is how do pedestrians safely enter the building from those directions?
I don't think there is a way, right?
They're encouraging people to drive only.
Yeah. That's the construction of more parking lots.
Mhm.
I don't have a good answer for you on this. We really should have addressed this when we addressed the site plan review for that south parking lot. The the best I could say now is that we engage with Ford Healthcare and kind of, in less formal discussions,
Mhm.
about that situation. It also requires, frankly, some responsibility on the part of the city to get sidewalk along McMillan Street, not only in front of the Ford Healthcare campus, but up and down. We did deal with this a bit on the north parking lot, if you'll recall, where we required that east-west sidewalk be put in,
Mhm.
which is going in now to maintain that connection that used to be 4th Street. But unfortunately, I don't think that this ever came up. It didn't come up in my review of the situation. And I don't think it came up from anybody else either.
And we have we have approved, the site plan has been approved, correct?
Yes, yeah,
Correct.
yeah, they're
This
building
is,
it now.
this is
Yeah.
merely for the
Right.
signage, the monuments.
I realize that, but I still think that it falls under the purview of wayfinding. So I guess I was remiss in bringing it up when we initially approved the site plan. But it's a concern.
I think we could certainly ask them to address if we see that there are pedestrian patterns or problems with that, with additional signage maybe. This is in particular, we're reviewing what they're proposing at the moment.
Andy, do you have any information on that section of McMillan and what the plans would be when, when the city reconstructs that road, which is not in great shape?
Yeah, so it is, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but we do have McMillan in line for water main replacement through there. So that is on I can say confidently, I think within the next 5 years, if not sooner, that will be designed and replaced. So that would be a great time to put in some additional sidewalks on either side. I'm not gonna lie, we've had some challenges trying to fund, sidewalk comes out of the road funds. And
Yeah.
right now I've got more water main funds than I have road funds. So the commitments are certainly financially dependent, but that would be a great time to do that. And then McMillan Street up in this area, we're still talking about, this is the north parking lot. We're still in conversations to essentially redraw the right of way through here to provide a more subtle, I guess, curve through here instead of a more the stops and angles that we have in there currently. So there's still some work to be done in the area. And it's not like this is going to be left for another decade before anybody touches it. But it will require us to remember to do that. I'm saying that out loud for myself as much as anybody else here. And make sure that we take into account some of those pedestrian accommodations. We did, I know we picked things up for the bikes on both of these parking lots and put in the bike racks and things like that. They're in the zoning code, but unfortunately and perhaps something we should look at, the box of how does one get to a destination is not one that is checkable in the zoning code currently, so.
I will just note that it's probably, even if we look at pedestrian accommodations in the future for this particular project, due to the grade changes along Sherman, I don't know if it would be realistic to, put stairs in there anyway and have that be an access, because it really doesn't, that's not really where
It
the
wouldn't be
entrance
handicap
is,
accessible.
Yeah.
No.
I did, yeah.
So-
I think I did bring that up and Jim Nelson did address that. I guess I was thinking, a pedestrian route would probably be adjacent to the driveway.
Yeah, it would probably, the grades are not quite as bad on the north end up here of the south parking lot. So there might be some capability to fit a sidewalk in the terrace and then enter up there. But certainly that south side's got more of a climbing wall feature than anything else.
Yeah. It's a big wall.
I move approval of the conditional use permit for a group development sign package subject to the following conditions. Require all monument and institutional information signs to be incorporated into the landscaping plans for the site, with landscaping placed around all sides of the base of each proposed sign, subject to approval by city staff. Allow all the proposed monument signs and institutional information signs to have non-opaque cabinet field, proposed to be blue, and any other recommendations of city staff and plan commission.
I
A
would-
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments, or final thoughts on this matter from the Plan Commission? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, on the agenda is review and possible recommendation to the city council relating to zoning text amendments relating to on and off street parking and home occupations. Mr. Drager.
Yes, so if you remember, we had 20 proposed zoning text amendments at one time that we had brought before you. And we had removed a couple of those out of those initial 20. There would be 4 of them, making 16 that we eventually took to city council. 4 of those, along with one additional zoning text amendment, along with a city trailer ordinance, is brought before you tonight with some alterations for what we had before. Taking feedback from residents and council members and various members of staff, trying to find a way to solve the issues and parts of the adjustments to the zoning text that we're trying to make, as well as accommodating others in the city that felt there was concerns with how it was being addressed. So we felt that we went through here and with feedback and made those adjustments, as well as making allowances for larger vehicles to be parked on private property. The major change here is that there would be no longer an ability for a home-based business or home occupation to park a trailer, business trailer on public street. They would be allowed to keep it on their private property without limit to number, as long as they are maintaining the 2 required parking spaces for a residential property. The one municipal trailer ordinance that's changing is one that reflects that same part of the zoning text, allowing for a trailer with a home occupation to be parked on the street. So in necessity, that had to be adjusted so they did not conflict with each other. So if you'd like, I can go through them real quickly so we know which ones we're talking about. I'll start with the zoning ordinance. Section 1 of your list there is the home occupation land uses. It's clarifying those parking specifics, as I alluded to just a minute ago, as far as parking on adjacent residential streets, for a home occupation permit. And also further states that they're allowed to park on private property, but still also stating that they have to have the required 2 spaces for a residential property. Other than that, they can park, if they have multiple trailers, they can park 3 trailers if they have those 2 required spaces and are a legal parking space.
And I think the goal, and sorry,
That's fine, yeah.
I will kind of add, I guess, to this, because this was quite an effort to get people into agreement on this. And there were very specific things we wanted to make sure that were addressed through these ordinance changes. And so this particular one, we wanted to make sure that if a property was large enough to accommodate some of these trailers, whether, I mean, this section is for home occupations, but also for other people who had recreational trailers. If the property and driveway were large enough to meet the parking requirements of the zoning code for the use, the residential use, as well as park a trailer or 2, the impetus, I guess, was that we wanted to keep trailers without vehicles off of the public right of way. And so we were allowing more on people's private property in relation to a home occupation. And then I believe there's another one later that addresses non-home occupation items.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
so thank you.
And then section 2, this would be clarifying, we had made the adjustment to require all parking to be paved. The problem that was being addressed here was we were trying to get that gravel from being transferred from private property onto public streets and into the stormwater system. But that was met with some concerns over ability to park and costs for new parking areas for recreational things. So the adjustment that was made in this proposal here is to allow for parking on gravel in the rear yard of your property for your pop-up camper or things like that. as long as it's not connected to your driveway. So you wouldn't be able to transfer that gravel to your driveway. And it would also require it to be screened per our screening, which is already existing for off-street parking of utility vehicles and things like that. So it's just carrying that over into here, which is already existing in our ordinances. But anyway, it was making that clear that we're addressing that concern, but also allowing for people to continue to use gravel so long as it's not being transferred into the street. Section 3 here, this is clarifying surface standards. This is parking, or this is the apron and things like that being addressed, and your off-street parking. There was a requirement in there for residential parking areas to use a thicker concrete or thicker asphalt, excuse me, than is normally associated with a residential property. So we took that recommendation and reduced it to 3.5 inches for residential, or 3 inches rather. But keeping with that 4-inch minimum for commercial properties and high use areas. It's also in this section here, just clarifying that replacement approaches and new approaches in the right of way must be made of concrete, meeting the 6 and 6 requirements that were previously existing. Section number 4. This is something that we had made quite a few changes to initially. And after consideration and along with the other changes that were being made, we decided best to go back to what was there, other than making an adjustment for a length that is associated with other parts of our zoning ordinances, as well as removing the tractors part of this, which we are addressing later on in these proposals as well, to allow for somebody who is just wanting to park their tractor, not the trailer of a semi setup, but their tractor on their private property if they were to come home from work over the weekend or something like that, to allow them to be able to park on their own private property for that. Whereas beforehand, we were technically not allowing that. We weren't enforcing it, but in the ordinances, we were not allowing. And then section 5 was added on. This is also easing some of the requirements, allowing for those larger vehicles, say a tractor without the trailer, or a small single axle dump truck or something like that. If somebody is coming from work, but it is an excessive distance to go back to the shop to get their personal vehicle, this is allowing for them to park that on their property for a short period of time or whichever, which otherwise was not allowed beforehand. So we're easing that to help accommodate some of these other changes that we were making. And then to go along with these, we have the section, if I can just find that, so I'm not speaking the wrong number, section 94-432, which is parking restrictions, and then it's in particular D, vehicle and trailer parking, which in that paragraph addressed, or this section addressed the ability to park a trailer unattached to a vehicle with a home occupation permit, seeing as our proposal is to remove that from the zoning amendments or zoning text. It is necessary to remove that from that ordinance as well. So they are not conflicting. I guess that's it. I'm open to any questions.
I will just add that section 5 of the zoning ordinance that increases the permitted gross vehicle weight on residential off-street parking areas, that does represent a significant compromise, I think, between some of the things that staff wanted to see and some of the things that members of the public and the city council wanted, certain members of the city council wanted to see. So that does represent a pretty significant compromise. So I just wanted to note that.
You had the fine amount, does it say no more than $25?
Is that for,
That's 65 or the new 6 and trailer parking? Is that 94-432 parking restrictions
Oh,
for trailers?
the municipal? I don't think we made any changes to the fees that were there.
Because those are way old, I think.
Yeah, we did not make any changes to that. That's what was existing at the time.
Okay.
We can certainly take another look at that if we want to reference another section, or is there
Or
a section that?
or increase them at least.
Yeah, I mean, is there another section that we might want to reference that is other kind of similar traffic
Yeah, I think is it
things?
Is it 110? I'd have to check, but that just seems kind of low.
Yeah, I agree with that. Questions, comments, concerns from the Plan Commission on any of these items?
Just to clarify, Jed, so a person with a truck, just, a passenger truck, work truck.
Like a pickup truck.
Pickup truck,
Yep.
yeah. Could not, for instance, park on a gravel pad next to a driveway in the front of the house.
Not a newly installed driveway, no. There are some that are pre-existing our previous zoning ordinances.
Okay,
But a newly installed would not be allowed to use gravel for that section.
okay. So if it's existing, it is grandfathered.
If it's legal existing, I should say, yes.
Well, okay, so a pad or not a pad, a gravel pad
Mhm.
adjacent to a driveway using the same curb cut and driveway apron. Is that legal?
Not under our current ordinances.
Okay.
It would still not be allowed because of the gravel.
Yeah, okay.
It
Thank
wouldn't
you.
meet our paving requirements. Yep.
And that's one of the challenges that
Yeah.
Jed has faced, right, over the last, I mean, your tenure plus our previous building inspector and zoning administrator is to be able to pinpoint exactly when these things show up because they don't,
Mhm.
Yeah.
if you're not coming in and getting a right-of-way permit,
Right.
you just kind of do it.
Right.
And then somebody says, well, hey, that person did it. Why can't I do it? And then, so it's challenging. And that is one of the reasons that we looked at only allowing gravel in the rear yard screened. And then that's more of a semi-permanent storage area for recreation equipment versus something that's going to be coming and going every weekend and pulling that gravel onto the road and into the storm sewer. So that was one of the reasons why we did that. And then also the screening, right? Because we do get complaints from neighbors relating to trucks on the right of way, but then also we get complaints from some neighbors about recreational equipment and other things that are stored on people's private property. So we're just trying to kind of fairly address some of the major safety concerns with the trucks and trailers and things in the right of way, but also allowing people to store things on their property if they have room.
So Jed, what we're doing is essentially we allow anything that already exists, but anything new we don't.
If what is already existing was installed legally at the time it was put in.
Okay.
So if it was something that was installed,
Allowable per the zoning regulations at that time,
correct.
except as we're just hearing that you may not always know when they actually did that, huh?
May not always, but Google Maps is very effective when it goes up to an extent, yes.
Okay.
And I will also note that I would note that the majority of this is complaint based. I mean, we have Jed, right? Jed is his department of Jed. So it's not like he has time and the free time to just drive around and carbon date the gravel and decide when it was put in.
I'm not looking
Right.
for more, yeah.
So,
but
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
so we do, we need the tools to be able to enforce the ordinances that we have, but we are not out and about actively, proactively looking for these types of things.
Right.
So I would assume that the primary goal of the city is to get vehicles that shouldn't be in the right of way off the right of way. And you're also with doing this, allowing some opportunity for a neighbor to complain about something that they may not find they may find objectionable next door.
Are you referring to allowing them? to-
Screening and
yes.
whether it's concrete or whether it's gravel or,
Yes.
the gravel is an issue apparently with water running the gravel into the street, et cetera. So that's the issue about gravel.
Attached to the driveway, yeah, and that's what we were trying to avoid there.
And so if you don't attach it to the driveway, how do they act? They just drag it across the lawn then, or?
Yeah, it's meant to be seasonal or intermittent. It's not meant to be a daily use thing. then it should be, I guess that's really up to the property owner to decide. We don't regulate how often they use their equipment, but we're allowing them to park it per se over winter if they have a boat. And they want to keep that on their private property, they can store that in their backyard with screening and on gravel, not have to pave that section.
So with the resolution, as you've got it worded here, does that satisfy the city's desire for keeping things out of the right of way that don't belong there?
I believe we are satisfied in that, yes.
Okay. I move the approval of the 5 proposed zoning text amendments and 1 chapter 94 traffic and vehicles text amendment as outlined in the summary that we were provided, subject to the following, any other recommendations of city staff.
Second.
Andy brought up a good point. Do we want to reference just another look at the fines before this goes to city council?
If that's something, yes, I would amend that we can look at the whatever the fine structure is that's proposed.
And just to add, I guess, does the plan commission see any need for that to come back to plan commission, or can we come up with a staff and city council approved fine structure? It would likely mimic something else that's already in our ordinance.
Subject to city council approval.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second on the floor to recommend council approval of the 5 zoning text amendments as well as the amendment to chapter 98, I believe.
It says
Yeah,
94.
Thank you.
Yep.
94 of the Code of General Ordinances with the addition of potentially changing that violation section in accordance with the city council's desires here. Any further final questions, comments, concerns from the plan commission on this recommendation?
Does this conclude then everything that you're proposing to change in the zoning code
Yes, this would, at our current time, we haven't.
at the present time?
At our present time, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody on the Zoom? I can't see you, so I don't know if.
Not for me, no.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 That motion carries. We're adjourned at 4:28 PM. Thank you all.